Today, Donald Trump's international trade war has entered its next phase with big tariffs going into effect between the U.S. and China actually being enacted on both sides. So this is a statement actually from the Chinese authorities. It said that these new trade regulations imposed by the Trump administration, which amount to a 25% tariff on $34 billion worth of Chinese imports, have, quote, violated WTO rules and launched the largest trade war in economic history to date. We don't know for sure if it will actually be the largest in history, but while that is the Chinese point of view, it also might well end up just being what actually happens. So we enacted those tariffs. Chinese authorities quickly retaliated with equivalent tariffs on $34 billion worth of imported U.S. goods, previously promised as ranging from vehicles to soybeans, beef, and other agricultural products. And in particular, China seemed eager to do these tariffs in a way that would affect Trump-supporting states more than others. And so we've been talking about the various promises that have gone back and forth from Chinese and US leadership for a while. But now a big set of tariffs have actually gone into effect. But that's not the end. We're gonna have some more information for you as well as we step into this new phase.
I just hate this feeling that Trump has talked about doing something and how he's gonna rattle a saber, and now he's done it. And you know, I particularly hate the feeling of knowing that he's in charge during all these moments. Because he has this narrative of being this businessman who's able to negotiate great deals, but I really haven't seen any of it. And I do believe that he believes in himself, but I do not believe that he has the ability to really navigate these very difficult, complex waters appropriately. I mean, he's been in a bunch of different industries, a bunch of random different industries, but nothing on the level of manufacturing, anything more than, maybe he's just been on branding, like throwing his name on it. But in terms of like supply chains that rely on raw resources from different countries at different levels of manufacture, I just don't have any confidence that he can really deliver this trade war victory if there ever in the history of the world has been a trade war victory.
He also has to know what that trade war victory is. What are those numbers? Also, just the fact that a trade war in the first place is something and there's no definitive line. It just kind of starts happening and people are affected by it, which people already are. Businesses already are. Now, the people in these states that are Trump voting states aren't gonna feel it right away right now, which is a little bit of his buffer. So the thing is, this could get worse because now he's gonna promise larger ones. And then so when the retaliatory tariffs come back to us, then he's gonna double down again because it's not enough yet. They haven't kowtowed to his demands yet. So once that happens, then he thinks he's winning something. But the thing is, we've participated in the world, in international trade, and where goods are crossed over between different countries. That's the way it works, obviously. So then once companies have to then take up for the higher costs, then they put it to consumers. That just doesn't happen right away. Jobs get changed. Now that's already happened. There's been lowered hours for many workers with the steel tariffs that are happening right now. So that's the first effective part. So people have to, their prices on things have to start going up and their jobs have to actually be lost first. I don't think he's consciously thinking this. He's hoping, he being a person who would think about this, is hoping that he can do this in the short term and then the people will buckle early so there's no actual thing that's felt yet. That would be a win for him, but that doesn't seem to be on the horizon, especially since he's promising more. So just the people worried about what could happen is where things could change. I mean, markets and things like that and people's businesses moving over, which Harley Davidson he's fighting with now. He thinks that's just the way to go about everything.
That's what's so weird is he's like fighting with Harley Davidson now. This like, it's if he's like this expert messenger, the like icon of American open roadsmanship is something he's locked in this debate against. And now his base has to make the decision, what do they like more, Trump or motorcycles? And that's the thing where it's like maybe that will be the breakdown that opens some leeway for people that are against Trump to kind of go through and message to those key voters who end up living in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Have we not already been there before though, where people are kind of voting against the greater good of themselves?
Oh, yeah.
When you went greater, I was like not even greater, just directly against themselves.
Yeah, when it comes to certain jobs, certain industries, they're still there at the bottom, hanging on by a thread. They're all losing their jobs in certain industries and being like, but he knows what he's doing.
Well, what I would have expected, totally. for a long time, but I would have expected that some of the symbolic stuff could have cut through that. That okay, they'll vote for someone who doesn't have their economic interests at heart. They've been doing that for literally decade after decade after decade. But Harley Davidson is supposed to be this conservative, iconic thing about Americana, open roadsmanship, as you said. So Jayar alluded to the next set of tariffs that could theoretically happen, and we don't have to wait to get at least some idea of what it might look like because Donald Trump has been talking about it in the last 24 hours. Hours before the deadline for the tariffs were going to take place, this is late last night, Donald Trump upped the ante, warning that the US may ultimately target over $500 billion worth of Chinese goods, or roughly the total amount of US imports from China last year. He would go higher, except that that can't work because we only bring in so much. And to give you an idea of how little thought actually goes into this, he just bops from idea to idea. Yesterday on Air Force One, he vowed to implement tariffs on an additional $16 billion worth of imported Chinese goods within the month. So he's, in one part of his mind, he's thinking maybe $500 million, maybe all of what our trade with China, and then randomly thinks, $16 billion, we do that for now.
Listen, like, blue collar jobs in America need help, right? And I'm not again, like, protectionist trade policies in some version or another can make sense and sometimes are necessary. It is crazy that the most protectionist person in the world right now is a Republican president. And I don't know what the next step is. I just keep coming back to this idea of like, Trump's the one making these decisions. Trump's the one rattling his saber this loudly, and there are real people's jobs at stake. And he's offsetting any potential gains that the economy has been making right now, because of who knows, any marginal, already these tax cuts are not going to like actual workers, aren't going to actual people. Maybe there's some in line with inflation rise in your income, but that's going away with these specific types of tariffs that Trump is just kind of generally shooting around. And it's whatever extra money you get because of a healthy economy right now, you're going to lose because things like your produce and the things you buy on the regular basis are going to be more expensive.
There's other aspects of this too that I found out more was part of the war. It's not always just based on the money. So even the perishable goods like pork, meats, fruits, things like that go through these customs, these other countries can also delay them, keep them in their ports longer, and then they rot. I mean, that's the thought of, oh man, the company's losing those goods. But you know what? That's those are goods, and how many people in the world itself need these things? I mean, just perishable goods where you eat, and we're just letting it rot because of one guy's ego and his desire to want to be the head honcho and biggest badass of the world. That's all he's thinking about. Yeah. But then in the meantime, food and products like that just rot at ports because of the retaliatory nature of these things.
Coming from states that overwhelmingly support Donald Trump too, which is fascinating to me. And then you have Republican congressmen coming out against this because it affects the people in their area. But you almost knew this was happening. So is it too late to be like, okay, I'm against this? I saw everyone against him say this wasn't a good idea and I ignored that, but now, please don't be mad at me.
Well, and also, he talked about these tariffs during the campaign. Right. It was one of the things, I guess it wasn't sexy, people didn't want to focus on it, but he talked about just blanket, I think he said 35% tariffs for all trade with other countries. He's targeted it a little bit more, pretty much just against our allies, honestly, but he had been talking about it at that time. And for the moderates who might be watching, or if there's some Trump supporters who might be watching, you might think that we're reading this wrong, the numbers. It'll work out in the end, they'll give up, they'll surrender, and the deals will end up being better. Hey, maybe that might work. But I also want you to understand that while this is going on, Donald Trump is trying to win you over by implying that he is being strong to China. China has been screwing all of us over, they've been cheating us, and only he will stand up to them. But have they actually been screwing everyone over? I mean, after all, you know that his products that he sells are made in China. Ivanka Trump, who you love, her clothes are made in China. And you might think, well, that's been around for a long time. Maybe now he's gonna be more pro-American in what he gets made and what he sells. But we already found out that they've begun ordering flags for his re-election campaign that will be made in China. And at the meantime, he throws up new tariffs. Are they hurting him? No, he's not trying to sell buildings to China. It doesn't affect his business directly at all. But for you, if you're trying to sell goods to China, have fun with the new tariffs they're putting on your goods coming in. And if you're trying to buy things coming from China, which is a significant portion of what we bring in from other countries, you're now going to pay more for it. So he can imply that he's got your back, but when it comes to dollars and cents, he's doing just fine as he makes you hurt more and more month by month.
I want to have one more small example because there was companies, I read through a bunch of them, the things that they're paying for in the first round of this. One particular company said they kept jobs here because a lot of them are leaving, like the way Harley Davidson did. This particular company kept their jobs here. The West Bend company, they paid from $150,000 to $175,000 for more steel and aluminum as a result of this. They said they kept their jobs here, and the head of the company said, I almost feel like we're being punished for that. Because now you're paying more because you said, I'm going American, I'm sticking with the patriotic approach to my country, because that's what Donald Trump always preaches. Yeah. But as he does it, he punishes those people directly. So does he hear those things? Number two, there's an isolationist approach to this now. You think other countries can't start trading with each other and eliminate our aspect of it? Yeah, I know America is the biggest country in the world. It's very necessary. Our products and goods and trades are needed. I get that. But after you've ruffled all of this and thrown everything up in the air, there's gonna be new partnerships that have been forged.
Yep.
And how hard is that to undo after you've made your point?
No one knows this better than China, who went into like isolation for 100 years and are coming out being like, all right, we're ready to play.
And maybe they're not so afraid to go a little bit further that way.
And that's the other thing, is like China has been judging Trump based on his actions recently. And he said he's this expert negotiator. He goes over to Pyongyang and they sign a treaty and then nothing happens except like the building of nuclear facilities even bigger afterwards. And there's that, plus like, what does China have to wait, 2 years? Maybe something else will change, you know? And they have total control of every facet of the economy, top to bottom, and they can do
in a way that Trump doesn't.
And they have a multi-decade plan that, for us, this is live or die. This is Trump either potentially doubling how long he's in office, but changing his term limit by 100%. But for the current, Xi Jinping, it's just like, it's another 24 months. We'll see.
If you thought that the tragic mass murder of 5 journalists at the Capitol Gazette last week would lead Donald Trump to moderate his tone when talking about journalists in the future, you must be new here to American politics, because that's not happening. So he had a rally yesterday, and of course he loves to talk about the media, and here is him doing just that.
Because I see it, I see the way they write. They're so damn dishonest. And I don't mean all of them, because some of the finest people I know are journalists, really. Hard to believe when I say that. I hate to say it, but I have to say. But 75% of those people are downright dishonest, downright dishonest. They're fake, they're fake. They make the sources up, they don't exist in many cases. Anytime you say, I saw one of them said 15 anonymous sources. I don't have 15 people in the White House. I mean, forget it. 15 anonymous sources have said all sorts of stuff. These are really bad people.
So there, really bad people, just super fast, he doesn't have 15 people. Apparently his comms team has 40 people. So there's more than enough room for those 15 anonymous sources.
In the White House? Like, that is insane.
Yeah, I'm assuming he means his comms team. Obviously in the White House, he's got probably hundreds of people.
That's an insane, part of a thought. Like, I don't have 50 people, and he abandoned it in a second because he realized how stupid that sounds.
He's like, even these idiots won't buy this.
Right, but he ran with it. The way he abandoned it, as if I'm not even going to finish this because you already know. I don't even have to finish it. But you get what I'm saying. Well, I was like, no, I want you to finish.
So yeah, what is it? Because he's talking about the anonymous sources. Anonymous sources don't just have to come from your communications department. They come from anyone, aides of other people in your cabinet.
Yeah.
They're in meetings all the time. There's tons of people. So yes, that point that he abandoned was that there's not 15 people in the White House. There's not 15 people in the executive branch.
Yeah.
There's not enough of 15 people to actually reveal anything is happening that happens behind closed doors that could be a source. That's what he said.
Totally
Watergate
true.
started with an anonymous source. Like, stop.
Well, and
This word anonymous.
He has been an anonymous source himself.
Charles Gasparino tweeted, just heard POTUS at this rally complaining about the use of anonymous sources. For the record, he was one of mine over the years.
Not anymore.
And he used to claim that he used to call into radio stations and say his name was John Barron and then talk about how awesome Donald Trump is. I guess that's not technically anonymous. anonymous, it's a made up name, but it's still kind of underhanded. But that is, I think, the least troubling part about what he just said. And part of it was, he had that weird bit in the middle where he said, some of them are the finest people I know. I hate to say it, I don't know why he hates to say that, but I realized, when we talked about in the damage report, I didn't realize what he was doing right there. He said, they're awful, awful people. Some of them are fine, I'm sure. That's the way he talked about Mexican rapists and murderers back when he drove himself into our lives 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
That's what he thinks is the clarifying fact. To be like, I mean, I'm sure there's a few. I know those few, and that's all that really counts. But outside of that, all the rest of them are monsters. They're animals. They're dogs. They just want to destroy your life. So follow me. It works for this kind of crowd.
I mean, I can respect that journalists are annoying to people in power, because I mean, you're supposed to hold them accountable. I can respect that, but it is weird. I go back to weird a lot. I'm in a weird space in my life right now, and he spoke more negatively about journalism than about racist in Charlottesville.
Yes,
Find people on both sides. Yeah.
because the threat to him is the media, because the media's job is to protect our sense of reality. And there's a lot that's messed up about the media, and it's pointed out on mass general media, mainstream media on this network by a lot. But there are specific examples. There are specific things that are pointed out. It is not this general sense of things morons say by water coolers of like, some of them I'm sure are fine, 75%, that's a number, they're all stupid. And what's frustrating is he goes on TV and says this in a place that is just his base, that's just his rally. And it is that little bit by bit growth of insanity where you see him say like one thing that might get people to cheer and people get used to cheering, and he says the next thing which is more insane, and you get to see more people cheering the more insane thing, and it just grows and grows. And it's just like when you hear a group of people laughing across the way and you're like, oh, it must be funny over there. You go, and even if they're insane people, you're kind of drawn in and a little curious, and that's what I'm afraid is happening.
Right. I mean, yes, media in general, every possible media outlet out there is not perfect, but the institution itself is important and necessary, especially in this country, especially right now.
You know, we're like reasonable people, so we have to keep saying things like, obviously the media has some problems. Oh, we've done enough of that, okay? No, screw him, screw Donald Trump. He's trying to get journalists killed. That's what he's doing. I think, Brooke, you said that you have a weird feeling from this. I don't have a weird feeling. I have a sinking, dreadful feeling that he knows that less than a week ago, someone took a gun and went into a newsroom and tried to kill as many journalists as possible. And less than a week later, he's telling his gun-toting rabid fans, they're very bad people. They lie to you purposefully about the most important things happening in this country. They lie to you about me, your God. And what are you gonna do about very bad people? He didn't go back to saying enemy of the people yet, but very bad people is pretty close. He knows exactly what he's doing there. And you can say that there's no direct link between what he has said previously and what happened at the Capitol Gazette, but he knows that there are people out there who despise the media so much that they want to see them killed. Some of them write into us on a daily basis. And he goes in front of his insane fans and tries to get them to hate the media. It's like I said in TDR. It's like a 2-minute hate in 1984. He's trying to get them riled up, and the target are the exact journalists that we know are already at threat of death in this country. It is beyond irresponsible. It is purposefully trying to stoke hatred and possible violence against this group.
So I mean, once that happened with the Gazette last week, or it was last Friday, he went on and said, journalists like all Americans should be free from the fear of being violently attacked while doing their job. And under the pressure from all these other politicians, they also had to, remember, they finally lowered the flags to half-mast because he didn't want to do that because he actually doesn't care. So every time he has these condolences and worries and concerns, and the American people should come together now, I want to provide you comfort, thoughts and prayers. Every time he gives any of those, remember, there's no actionable policies or anything he has, honestly, words after that one statement. He says it, he leaves, goes, oh, done with that lie. Now I can go back to being who I am and actually despise all these folks. Because remember his condolences after the last 3 school shootings, even though there's one every week. The biggest ones, which actually prompted many students to actually come out Parkland and everything, right? Thoughts and prayers, condolences. We need to come together. I can't believe this should never happen in America. What has he done about that? Nothing. The Vegas shooting, thoughts and prayers. I can't believe it's horrible it's happened in our country. Nothing has been done about that. Yeah. So after this latest one, thoughts and prayers, condolences, can't believe this happened. He's out a week later advocating the same type of violence because he does not care. So next time he gives you those condolences, don't buy it. You can straight up say it like one of the survivors of this latest of the Gazette shooting. She cursed on air and was like, you know what, I don't need any more of it. F that, I don't need it anymore. Approach it that way now.
And it's sad where it's gotten. There was a video that BuzzFeed News put out of these two kids outside a Trump rally.
Oh, we didn't play that.
And we didn't have it, but these two like 6-year-olds. And they're asking and it's a BuzzFeed reporter asking these two 6-year-olds, what do you think about Trump's immigration policy or something? Or whatever it was. And they go, there's too many Mexicans, we don't want the Mexicans. They're coming in, they're taking our jobs.
They're overpopulating us.
And
of course they're wearing MAGA hats and they have Trump shirts and they don't know what they're saying, of course.
Well, neither do the adults.
Yeah,
they're saying the same thing.
But they're being raised to believe this
same
stuff.
thing. It's an elementary approach, and that's a big proof of that.
And it's an elementary, yeah, exactly. But yeah.
They don't know what they're saying, but the little brown kids who are in kindergarten with them know what it feels like to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's life-changing, it's devastating, you can't wipe that out. You know what I mean, for the rest of their lives. Somebody saying that your classmate when you're 6 saying that he can go on and be a non-racist and change his life, but that will always be a story in your history. There will always be something that affected you, that changed you. That's horrifying, I haven't seen that video, ugh, I don't want to.
Yeah, and I know, so Brett and I, we've been having this ongoing conversation about, obviously you're more vocal, obviously we both want future conversations politically to be about the issues. And I have this fear that the damage he's doing outside of the issues makes it impossible to get to that. And one of the things is, I don't know how quickly you can repair the damage done to not like respect for the media or whatever that's supposed to mean, but just accepting that generally the things that are said in the media aren't necessarily purposeful lies to you. So like when we in 2020 want to have a conversation about Medicare for all, and we say, hey, you know, there's this analysis showing it'll actually save a bunch of money, results will be better, there's all these countries. They don't believe that any of that is remotely true. They don't believe facts, they don't believe the media, nothing that's reported is true. That's my fear, and we're seeing it every day. I mean, he's not gonna back off. We don't get 2 weeks out of a mass murder of journalists in this country anymore, of him not stoking the sort of hatred and distrust.
I still have optimism that people want a positive voice that cares about people. And
I agree, I do want the same thing.
And if that shows up, if that continues, I think that it can win. And I think we need to do that. I think we need to have someone say those things. And there are people out there that have potential to make that happen. I think there's Trump fatigue, but I think people, I mean, it was a great thing seeing Ocasio-Cortez just list a bunch of things she believes in because she cares about people. And that is so refreshing. And there's a lot of damage being done every day. It was horrifying to see this video of these 2 kids. I'm afraid that in 2 weeks, it's not gonna be as horrifying to see stuff like that. In 2 months, I'm not gonna notice it. But I think there are people out there, just as Trump pierced with this cynical blabbering that's just rousing hate. I think if someone shows up that arouses hope and the optimistic spirit of America, then I think it can snap people out of it and get us back on the right track.
If you were watching Fox News in the last 24 hours, you definitely knew about Donald Trump's rally. So they spent the day teasing the rally, as they do. I'm not even gonna get too on them over that because CNN's 7 days before town hall, they've got a ticker on it. But they did tease it all day long, and then they aired it. All 1 hour and 14 minutes of the rally played live on Fox News. Just a routine campaign rally. He's not even campaigning for anything himself. They played the whole thing. And according to IQ Media, a media monitoring service, the advertising value of that hour and 14-minute long play by Fox News was $1.9 million that they handed to Donald Trump by playing that. And here's the thing, that hour and 14 minutes, that's not the extent of it. Let's bring up this next chart. You're gonna see the media value of the network's live coverage of Trump rallies. They've given $15 million by playing virtually every rally he does over the past couple of months. They just play it. Now, we also theoretically could have CNN and MSNBC. I mean, I remember CNN played a whole bunch of his campaign rallies, whether he was actually at the podium or not during the last campaign. But for the past few months, this has been the Fox News show. There's no false equivalence here. MSNBC played a couple of minutes of it. Fox News just plays every possible minute. Bring up this next one. They've played almost 8 hours of his rallies. CNN has played literally 0 seconds, 8 minutes on MSNBC over the course of the past couple of months. So, like, if there's any conversation out there, and perhaps there isn't, about whether Fox News is state media, it's done. They're just a free advertising service for Donald Trump. They've handed millions over to him. And like, we criticized the media during the last campaign. They spent way too much time just showing whatever he was saying or whatever. It looks like some people have learned. Maybe they'll forget that lesson when the next presidential election comes around. But in the time between elections, Fox News is there. They are a reliable source. They will give Donald Trump whatever he needs, including millions of dollars in free advertising.
I think we found those few journalists in the media that he said he's okay with, that are his friends, that he's reluctant to say, because they give him things. It's all based in the reciprocal thing. We talked about Maria Bartiromo early this week, who had maybe Sunday. She had the softball interview with him, and she's been working on it. You work on that, on landing that. It's a career move. So the whole time, she's coming on Fox and Friends. I mentioned this when it happened. She goes on Fox and Friends over the past several months and touts the witch hunt that's going on with the investigation. And they'll go, I can't believe Russia. I can't believe what the FBI's doing. I can't believe what Comey's done to you. And she's talking with the Fox and Friends host, but she's talking to Trump, be like, I have a show of my own that once I land your interview, then I get some kind of, I get a boost. And then the execs go, oh, good job. That's all the job is. So she used to be a thinking person that I think she started with CNBC. She was a money person, and now she's handing softball interviews to him because that is the career move. So if you give him this, he gives you those exclusive interviews back. We already know he doesn't talk to the media, at least on a one-on-one basis, because when he does for 5 minutes, he says 7 things that are devastating to a normal person. But to him, it just bounces back off because he's Donald Trump.
Right, even the little bit of access that the press pool had to Donald Trump was on his way from the White House to a one-on-one interview with Fox and Friends, and back.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Did that look like a reach out of wanting more access, or did it? I don't know. It felt like she was his base in that moment. I think a lot of people were kind of pointing because there was a lot of you're right. No, you're right. That's not what's happening. Yes, exactly. It didn't seem like softballing because you want to maintain a lot of times what people complain about the White House press corps. In general, people who don't do that. They say that you're still there, you're not all walking out every day when a big lie happens because you need that access. I understand that. But this was different. It looked different at least.
It's where it's gotten.
It's how easy it is to
like a frog in a pot boiling.
Yeah, usually. I mean, with anybody in power, I think a lot of journalists, media figures will try to get them on and be nice to them. I mean, in any kind of aspect, even with sports, whatever, even when it's not changing people's lives that much.
Unless you're kneeling.
No, then suddenly it's a biggest deal ever. That's the problem now.
So,
oh my God.
There are some people who believe that we are still in normal times. This is just a continuation of the way things have been. The economy is the same, politics the same. Don't worry about the norms. Don't worry about the media. Don't worry about the attacks and all that stuff. But this is fundamentally different. Like, Fox News has been right wing, obviously, and they supported George W. Bush, especially during the war. Not just Fox News, but all the networks were glowing in praise and all that. But there wasn't specific programming that was not just about him or in support of him, but to him. It wasn't that all of your hosts appeared to be competing with each other to get jobs in his administration. It would happen from time to time, but it's like the norm at this point. MSNBC, I'm sure many of those hosts probably loved Barack Obama, but it was not this sort of relationship. This is fundamentally different than the relationship between the White House and the media has been as long as I've been a part of this, and even before.
It's bizarre because now we're at this space where if you tell the truth, you're left-wing media. If you say, hey, no, this is a lie, let me show you why this is a lie. We're gonna bring up a very easy, a clear graphic, show you why that is not true, then you're a left-winger. And it's weird.
Attacking.
So it's everybody, it's Fox News versus everybody at this point. And it doesn't even matter if that's what your intentions were, if you just tell the truth, but it's not the nicest thing, you are against the president, which is not how this works.
And I don't know how to get through to his base. It feels like East Germany. I want to fly over the flyover states and drop leaflets.
Trump's Mar-a-Lago has asked to hire 61 additional foreign workers using a visa program, you may remember H-2B. So documents posted by the Department of Labor on Thursday showed that the club asked permission from the government to hire 40 new servers and 21 new cooks under the H-2B visa program, which allows companies to employ foreign workers or legal immigrants on a temporary basis if the business can't fill the spots with qualified Americans. Last year, the Department of Homeland Security and soon after Trump properties re-increased the cap on H-2B visa requests, approval to hire dozens of workers. Now, I know what you're thinking. This seems to directly contradict Trump's America First, what is it, policy or just slogan? Vague slogan, and it does, it certainly does. Since Trump declared his candidacy in 2015, Trump-owned or branded businesses have sought to employ more than 400 foreign guest workers under the H-2B visa, with the Mar-a-Lago club alone accounting for at least 264 of those workers. So I think we can agree that this does go against the American First mentality. So why is he doing this? Does he not care? He said that he tried very, very hard to hire Americans and that it just didn't work out, and that's the summer surge. What's going on here?
It goes back to that quote you just said. He said it could be, quote, very, very hard during Florida's busy fall and winter months. And he went on to say, you know why they're doing that? They can't get people, George. They can't get people who are willing to sacrifice their holidays to do this. So they have to find people who are very determined to provide for themselves, maybe their family, maybe escape a terrible situation. If it's, you know, who else is going to sacrifice their holiday? People who have to.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. And you know what? Make America great again. Bring back slavery, indentured servitude. You know, taking advantage of, I saw the wages. You know, Mar-a-Lago is hot because their meat is bad. Remember, we did that story here that because of the temperature, you know, the high temperatures that the meat was, they didn't pass health code.
Yeah.
But they went and got immigrants. But it's just another line in the book of hypocrisy of Donald Trump. And the fact that people believe him at his word is what, like I keep saying over and over again. Are they hypnotized? Is there a serum that's in the water? There's something pouring in the water. How is it that you yourself can visibly, you can spot the lies? A child can say, this guy keeps contradicting himself here. He said this about abortion, then he said this about abortion. He said this, he said this. It's like ongoing, and we're normalizing it.
It's because it's like a trick. I mean, somehow the 1% or whatever Donald Trump, his constituents are, or his, you know, direct cronies, it's like convincing the working poor that another group of working poor is the reason why they're poor.
Right.
That's not the reason why they're poor. It's because the people who set the wages and the people who own the companies aren't helping you. They're not trickling down like they said they would. They're reinvesting in themselves. They're buying back their own stock. Use your brain. It is obviously not them. It is the people who have made you think this.
Well, I think also furthermore, you talk about like, are they being hypnotized? Like, what's going on here? I think to a degree they are, because this isn't being covered on Fox News. This isn't being talked about. They're not holding his feet to the fire at all. And so it's a blind spot that perhaps and maybe this is willful, me being far too kind. It's a blind spot they don't even recognize they have. You know, so they're watching the rallies that Fox News is playing on repeat, and they're watching Fox and Friends, and they're watching other conservative media outlets, and so they're missing the other side of what's going on here and the other policies that are in place. I think that they do not know, and if they do know, then they don't care, because they don't care.
That it doesn't get any more clear than what you just said, Grace. They don't care, and like we talked about earlier, these Trump supporters are so on the bandwagon. They're so entrenched. They're so gung ho for this dude that anything that is dissent from that is a direct threat to their apparently overall being. And then that's a great point too, Grace, that it's not being covered. So blissful eye, not my backyard, right? If I don't see it, if I don't know what's happening, then it's not happening.
It just hits two very ancient parts of the brain, one of which is tribalism. People want to be in a group. People want to feel like there's someone out there who has their backs, who thinks like them, that justifies their opinion on things. And then there's also the need to want easy answers.
Yeah.
It is a much more complicated answer, and it is being obfuscated, like you said. It's not something that can just be easily picked up and shoveled to you. So you're just, here we're seeing like a willingness to accept whatever answer you're given instead of looking deeper for truth.
Seems like mass hysteria. But the other thing is that they're getting their news from Fox News, and most of the people who support Donald Trump are not going to be at Mar-a-Lago. They're not going to go there. They're not going to be a member of that country club because they're too busy trying to work and feed their families. But because they are getting their information from the source that is feeding them what they need to feed them to keep them where they are, this is going to continue to happen. And those of us who call ourselves activists, we have to openly go out and speak to those people because those are the people that we need to talk to.
No, I think that's an excellent point. I think sometimes you catch yourself like, am I preaching to the choir here? Because that will not affect change. And when you think about how we can affect change, I think it is in making sure that this proliferation of information is as broad as it possibly can be. We're going to be talking about the World Cup. I'm in a great mood because Belgium won today.
Again?
Yeah, they did. They beat Brazil. That's not what we're going to be talking about. So, a male reporter was forcibly kissed by female fans, and this caused a debate about sexual harassment. So the reporter was from South Korea, and he was grabbed and kissed by 2 Russian women. We have video. Let's take a look.
선전이 돋보였습니다. 러시아 상트페테르부르크에서 MBN 뉴스 정광열입니다.
So this started a debate on Weibo, which is a social media sharing forum. One user saying, why is this not sexual harassment? Another going on, this is sexual harassment, K thanks, bye. There was a debate surrounding it. Someone countered saying, sexual harassment is behavior that happens when the other person doesn't consent to it, but look at how happy he is afterwards. A lot of people on the forum were saying they feel like this would have been covered differently had it been a female reporter. Now, unfortunately, we actually have incidents of that from the World Cup of female reporters being groped and kissed and harassed on the job. So let's take a look at a video of this. This is coming from Juliette Gonzalez.
Del mundial, por supuesto, es un ambiente soñado para cualquier fanático del mundo.
So she actually carries on. I watched that full segment. It's about 4 minutes long, 4 to 6 minutes long. She carries on like an absolute professional, though later she did issue not an apology. She said, we do not deserve this treatment. We are equally valuable and professionals. I share the joy of football, but we must identify the limits of affection and harassment. Now, the assailant in that video did issue an apology, saying that he offers his most profound apologies and that he didn't realize that it would cause you confusion and shock. And I know your job is very hard. All of this. So breaking this down, the 2 different instances, you guys all saw the videos. How do you reconcile this? Where do you lie on this issue?
Oh, he didn't realize grabbing her boob might confuse her.
Right.
Well, look, there's that argument with the first South Korean reporter. Oh, he smiled, that's consent. No, smiling is not consent. Unless it's expressed, it's not consent. And I can't speak for him, but I know my culture, sometimes smiling is something you do when something is awkward and confusing and you're trying not to make things worse. But maybe we shouldn't be doing that, like how she kept going on and on with her 4-minute segment, pretending it didn't happen. Maybe we should be calling this stuff out. It's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, like you said, your culture, I totally hear you on that. I put myself in a situation if that was me and someone came up to me and kissed me on camera without my consent. I mean, I don't think I would have, I wouldn't portray that or interpret that as harassment or assault. Personally, the female reporter, absolutely. When you're grabbing other parts of the body, holding on to those parts of the body for an extended period of times, yes. But it's like, where's the middle ground? You know?
Don't touch someone when they're reporting.
Keep your hands to yourself, and not just when you're reporting. Just keep your hands to yourself. Period. The other thing that I was thinking about, it was the reason men don't feel as uncomfortable with those things happen to them because they don't have to walk down the street constantly worrying about being groped, assaulted, and raped. It's not the reality of a man. And still with that, I still don't condone somebody walking up to somebody and kissing somebody because they think it's cool. I don't think it was cool for those women to do that to them. That is sexual harassment because like she said, consent is consent. Consent is not a smile, it's not a shrug, it's not it. Consent is yes or no. And I think it's inappropriate. I think people need to learn to keep their hands to themselves. And I agree with you more than anything. I love millennial women because they go out and they are like punch you in the throat. Until you start calling out this behavior, I don't mean physically.
No, I mean, but like we've been taking it on the chin, and we've been trying to take the higher ground. And has it worked for us?
No.
No. It hasn't. So maybe it is time to say that's not right. You shouldn't be doing that.
It's happening in Brazil.
And I think we can deal in absolutes in this case. Like I hear what you're saying, are you looking for like a middle ground? But for me, watch both tapes. I'm like both wrong, both not okay, and we should be speaking out against it. Which is why I thought it was really, I don't know. Sometimes I worry about how we cover the harassment of men and how we say like, oh, take it like a man, or boys will be boys, or that sort of thing.
That's
and I think
sexism too.
I think that's sexism as well, and I think that's absolutely wrong, which is why I was so impressed with the dialogue that we saw on Weibo, which is a social media forum I'm not familiar with, that they were calling this out pretty decisively and swiftly following the reporting, saying that's not okay. And I think dealing in those absolutes will lead to progress, because we have to draw those lines.
Because the guys who have that mentality will justify doing it to a woman because that man smiled.
Right.
And they take the wrong messages. So we have to draw the line and say, and I agree, I think being complacent and being complicit at this point. You gotta go. We have to stop.
There's an initiative in Brazil called Let Her Work, where 52 female journalists are doing just that, spreading the message that this is not okay. Because your question was, why didn't she on camera say, listen, what just happened is effed up. So, well,
I can see why she didn't, because you try to be professional, but it's also, what is the right time to say what?
Right, well, that's what this Let Her Work is trying to do, at least. It's equivalent to the Me Too movement, if you will, but it's a start somewhere.